Hi, I'm Dr. Sarah-Nicole Bostan, clinical health psychologist and director of behavior change strategy at Signos. Earlier, I used the example of a rip current to highlight the struggle with weight loss and metabolic health and our understandable desire for controlling the situation. The takeaway was the more inflexible and rigid you are, the more difficult it can make your own weight loss and glucose management journey because of the stress you put on yourself both mentally and physically. To better understand what we should be aiming for with our weight loss efforts, flexibility, let me share more about what psychological inflexibility looks like. There's some specific ways this tends to show up in our behaviors, and you can start to catch yourself when this is happening. But first, you have to know what to look for. Ask yourself if any of these sound familiar to you and how you've approached your weight or your own metabolic health. Number one, avoidance. You might notice yourself actively avoiding or shutting out data or events that make you uncomfortable. Of course, nobody likes being uncomfortable. But this is more about a mentality of, I'd rather not try than fail. This might sound like a little voice we've all had at one point or another that goes, I'm not good at whatever. Let's say exercising. I don't have any stamina. I can't go on that run after eating because I'm at work, so I can't do it at all. Avoidance is basically when we swim against our own rip current. Seems like a good solution in the short term because we think we're problem solving, but in the long run, avoidance just gets us into more trouble. I once had a patient that was so stressed about getting his A1C test done or 3-month blood glucose checks at the doctor that he started ignoring his scheduled appointments altogether. In the short term, he didn't have to deal with the distress of seeing his metabolic health may not be doing great. But because of shutting out this opportunity for awareness, he was also on track to worsen his metabolic health in the long term if his glucose stayed uncontrolled and without some kind of medical intervention. Number two, distraction. When you're more distractible, you have more difficulty focusing on what's happening right now and with your own health. If this happens, you may be more likely to get pulled to past events where you've experienced a failure on your health journey or point to a past failure as a reason your weight or your metabolic data isn't looking the way you want it to. This looks like saying, well, last time so and so happened, rather than refocusing what's going on right now in your body. If you wear a CGM like I do, this looks like being caught up in the weeds of how specific sensors might be baselining, or being frustrated with one specific spike that you didn't expect, or that usually doesn't happen under the same conditions. The best way to counteract this distraction process is to stay present and remember to take in the whole picture with your weight patterns and your glucose patterns, because single values are largely meaningless without context. When we're distracted, we also tend to have worse awareness of our own body or specific sensations and what they're trying to tell us. Third, getting hooked by thoughts. When you're inflexible, you're more likely to be hooked by thoughts and narratives that just aren't serving you. This might sound like, my genes made me this way, or I've tried other diets and failed, or it's just too hard, or I haven't lost weight yet, even though I'm doing everything I'm supposed to, so this must not be working. And holding on really strongly to these thoughts might actually lead you to quitting a useful health behavior altogether. Everyone's prone to getting hooked by thoughts at one point or other, even psychologists, but this tends to happen when we're overly focused on the narrow outcomes of a health goal instead of why we're doing the behavior in the first place. Thoughts have a funny way of masquerading as truths, so noticing we're being hooked by an unhelpful thought can help us kind of loosen its power over us so we can continue on our metabolic health journey. Number four, another common problem that gets in the way of our weight loss or health goal is difficulty with perspective taking. This is another area that really gets you when you're being inflexible with your health. You start to lose the big picture accidentally, and you might make rash judgments or health decisions based on one specific event in time rather than zooming out and taking a bird's eye view in order to be the you that you want to be, regardless of what's happening around you. This could sound like, I know I'm going on vacation anyway, so what's the point of making or sticking to any goals? Or I thought I would have lost more weight by now, so why try? Both of these statements lose the bigger picture, which is that taking any steps towards your metabolic health are worth taking, even if they're slower than you want them to be, or if you aren't perfect all the time, because nobody is. Number five, another familiar trap in your health journey is confusion about what matters. When you're inflexible, you start to drown out why you're doing a behavior in the first place because there's just too many competing priorities in your life. Most people don't decide to lose 5 pounds or wear a CGM just because. There's always an underlying why, and that why acts as your propeller to drive you forward when circumstances get challenging or when you experience those inevitable roadblocks. It becomes overwhelming to manage your health proactively or any chronic condition when you're confused about why you're doing it. You might not even remember why you started. This lack of direction and general stuckness can derail your sense of motivation too. Lastly, and maybe the biggest culprit that gets in our way of health goals is inaction. There's an old saying that goes, if you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got. When we're psychologically inflexible, we tend to rigidly keep doing the same behaviors over and over again, and they're just not working. But we keep doing them anyway because we're just stuck. Sometimes making a successful health change needs to start with picking one behavior to do differently and committing to doing that behavior even when you're not motivated to or when you feel down on yourself. The act of starting a new health behavior sets you in motion. And once you've started, it becomes easier to keep going at any health habit, whether it's eating more vegetables, drinking enough water, sleeping 8 hours, going on a walk or run daily, lifting weights, or managing your own stress through self care. You can pick up when inaction and stuckness might be happening to you when you notice yourself saying things like, I don't know where to start, or someone needs to give me more guidance before I do whatever the behavior is, or I'll do when I'm a little bit more motivated, maybe tomorrow when I'm more rested. The best time to make a change is in this present moment because it's the only time you have to affect change since the past is already gone and the future is actually out of your control. Thanks for tuning in. Again, I'm Dr. Sarah-Nicole Bostan, Director of Behavior Change Strategy at Signos. Subscribe to our channel for more on metabolic health, and I'll see you soon.